What happens when sitcoms cross the line and TV execs hit the panic button? Welcome to the wildest side of the 1970s, when primetime comedies didn't just break the rules, they shredded the playbook and dared the censors to keep up. Some episodes were so controversial, so raw, that they never saw the light of day, or were yanked before your grandma could even write a letter to the network. Which classics got banned, and why? Stick around, because the answers might just blow your mind. All in the Family. Edith's 50th birthday, 1977. How do you shock an audience already used to Archie Bunker's mouth? You go where even Norman Lear's critics never thought he'd dare. Edith's 50th birthday wasn't just an episode, it was an emotional minefield. The setup seems innocent. Edith's about to celebrate her milestone birthday, but behind the laugh track, something dark is lurking. On the day of her party, Edith is alone in the house when a man posing as a police detective forces his way in and tries to assault her. This wasn't typical sitcom fare. It was a gut punch, dropping viewers into the raw terror of an attempted rape scene, unflinching, uncomfortable, and disturbingly real. The audience, expecting banter and wisecracks, suddenly found themselves squirming as Gene Stapleton delivered a career-defining performance, oscillating between terror and desperate resilience. The tension was so thick, you could feel America holding its breath. Network execs freaked. Some stations flat out refused to air it. Others pushed it to late night, hoping no one would notice. The episode sparked a tidal wave of letters and phone calls, half thanking CBS for showing the real dangers women face, half demanding someone be fired for destroying family television. Even the sponsors panicked, with several pulling their ads to avoid being linked to such a hot-button storyline. But here's the kicker. Lear didn't care about backlash. He wanted the conversation, even if it meant shattering TV's fake comfort zone. Edith's 50th birthday became a cultural bombshell, one that still makes network execs sweat when rerun requests come up. It's a painful, uncomfortable classic that forced America to look in the mirror, and if you ever needed proof that sitcoms could do more than just play for laughs, this was it. Maud's Dilemma, Parts 1 and 2, 1972. Think controversy on TV started with reality shows? Think again. In 1972, Maud's Dilemma didn't just push the envelope, it set it on fire. Picture this. Maud Findlay, middle-aged, witty, and fiercely independent, discovers she's pregnant at 47. Instead of the expected hijinks or a miracle baby subplot, Maud and her husband have a blunt, honest conversation. The punchline? Maud decides to have an abortion. Let that sink in. This was before Roe v. Wade. Abortion was illegal in most states and absolutely radioactive as a TV topic. You didn't even whisper the word on network sitcoms, let alone make it a plot point. But Norman Lear, never one to flinch from controversy, went all in. The two-part episode aired to an audience that had never seen anything like it. The fallout was immediate. Over 30 CBS affiliates refused to broadcast it. Politicians thundered from pulpits. Family values crusaders flooded the network with hate mail, and advertisers ran for the hills. Maud's choice was discussed on talk shows, debated in Congress, and dissected in every living room from New York to Boise. Some viewers praised the show for its honesty, seeing Maud's story as a brave leap into real-world issues. Others saw it as the moral apocalypse, proof that TV had lost its mind. Even years later, reruns of Maud's Dilemma were considered too hot to handle, pulled from syndication, or buried late at night. But here's the wildest part. The controversy only cemented Maud's Dilemma as a landmark. It showed sitcoms could force a nation to confront its taboos, whether America was ready or not. Forget the punchlines, this was prime-time dynamite. Good Times, The Evans Get Involved, 1976. Let's talk about the kind of episode that makes even hardened TV execs sweat through their suits. Good Times was never shy about showing the rough edges of life in Chicago's projects, but The Evans Get Involved blew past every boundary, and then some. This multi-part storyline introduced Penny Gordon. Here's the setup. Penny is a sweet, quiet girl who befriends the Evans family, but something's off. The audience soon learns the awful truth. Her mother, played by Chip Fields, is violently abusing her. In one of the most harrowing moments in sitcom history, Penny is burned with a hot iron. Yes, you read that right. A network sitcom actually put child abuse front and center, showing the scars, the terror, and the helplessness of a child trapped by circumstance. The response? pure panic from censors and affiliates. Some stations flat out refused to air the second part, arguing that the scenes were too graphic, too real, and too damaging for a genre built on laughter. Even among viewers, reactions were mixed. Some praised Good Times for shining a light on a subject no one wanted to acknowledge, while others said it was simply too much darkness for primetime TV. Behind the scenes, the cast and crew knew they were taking a huge risk. Esther Rolla, Florida Evans, and Jeanette Dubois, Willona Woods, brought gravitas and empathy to the storyline, fighting to make sure Penny's pain wasn't sanitized or downplayed. And Janet Jackson, her performance as Penny was so haunting that it stuck with viewers for decades. In the end, the Evans Get Involved forced a national conversation about child abuse, one that TV had studiously avoided for years. Was it too much? Maybe. But it's also the kind of episode that proved sitcoms could do more than just entertain. They could change minds, save lives, and refuse to look away when it mattered most. Soap, pilot episode 1977. When Soap hit the airwaves, network censors must have wanted hazard pay. This wasn't just another family sitcom. This was a full-scale assault on every taboo television had ever tiptoed around. Right out of the gate, the Soap pilot served up a cocktail of adultery, homosexuality, impotence, murder, and more plot twists than most shows manage in a decade. The boldest move? Introducing Billy Crystal as Jody Dallas, one of the very first openly gay main characters on primetime TV. In 1977, this wasn't edgy, it was downright explosive. The pilot didn't just nod at Jody's sexuality, it let him talk about his relationships, his struggles, and his attempts to navigate a world that barely acknowledged people like him existed. The backlash was instant and fierce. ABC affiliates received threats, petitions, and more angry letters than the network had seen in years. Religious groups declared Soap a threat to public decency, some advertisers bailed, and over 30 stations across the country refused to air the pilot altogether. Even those who did broadcast it sometimes aired edited versions, trimming the more dangerous jokes and cutting anything that might set off the censors. But here's what makes the Soap pilot legendary. It refused to blink. Creator Susan Harris and her writing team doubled down, lampooning hypocrisy while making audiences laugh, cringe, and just maybe think a little harder about their own prejudices. Jody wasn't a punchline. He was a human being, flawed, funny, and real. Despite, or maybe because of, the controversy, Soap became a cult sensation, and the pilot stands as a turning point in sitcom history. It didn't just bend the rules, it snapped them in half and danced on the pieces. Some called it outrageous, others called it brave, but nobody ever called it boring. Sanford and Son, The Puerto Ricans Are Coming, 1973. If you want proof that Sanford and Son didn't care about polite society's comfort zone, look no further than The Puerto Ricans Are Coming. This episode pushed the already rowdy boundaries of the show and delivered a gut punch of controversy that's still debated today. Here's the setup. Fred Sanford, played to perfection by Red Fox, finds himself caught up in a neighborhood panic when he learns Puerto Rican families are moving in. Fred's response, a barrage of racial slurs, stereotypes, and jokes that land with all the subtlety of a sledgehammer. The episode tries, sometimes clumsily, sometimes pointedly, to satirize prejudice by making Fred the butt of the joke. But not everyone saw it that way. When the episode hit the airwaves, the backlash was swift and furious. Community leaders, especially from Latino organizations, blasted the show for its use of harmful language and racist caricatures. Letters poured in, demanding apologies and boycotts. Some local affiliates decided the risk wasn't worth it and pulled the episode, while others aired it with disclaimers or heavy edits. Behind the scenes, the creative team argued that the episode was meant to shine a spotlight on the absurdity and cruelty of bigotry, using Fred's ignorance as a mirror to society. But intent didn't always translate. Many viewers only saw the sting, not the satire. The controversy grew so heated that NBC quietly stopped airing the episode in reruns, and it's rarely seen in syndication to this day. Sanford and Son was never afraid to court outrage, but The Puerto Ricans Are Coming crossed a line that even its own defenders had trouble justifying. Whether you see it as a daring piece of social commentary or a regrettable misfire, one thing's clear, this episode was banned for a reason, and it's still a reminder of just how far TV has come, and how far it still has to go. Mace H., The Interview, 1976. It's not often a sitcom makes you put down your snack and really listen. But The Interview, the finale of Ma's fifth season, dared to strip away the laughs and go straight for the gut. Instead of the usual wisecracks and chaos, the cast sits in stark black and white, fielding questions from real-life war correspondent Clete Roberts. What unfolds is less a comedy episode, more a slice of raw, uncomfortable truth, as Hawkeye, Radar, and company are forced to confront the grim realities of war. But while American viewers braced themselves for a sitcom suddenly masquerading as a documentary, censors in other countries were having none of it. The US never officially banned The Interview, but broadcasters in Britain, Australia, and several military networks overseas refused to air it. Why? The tone was too dark, the anti-war sentiment too obvious, and the emotional punches landed a little too hard for comfort. The episode was a departure in every sense. No laugh track, no over-the-top hijinks, just honest, often heartbreaking reflections on trauma, loss, and the cost of human life. Alan Alda, Loretta Swit, and the rest of the cast delivered unscripted, soul-bearing responses to questions about death, love, and coping in a war zone. For some viewers, this was Mass H at its very best, using comedy's reach to force a nation to grapple with the horrors of conflict. For others, it was a betrayal of what a sitcom should be. But the real controversy bubbled up in military circles and among conservative groups, who accused the show of pushing an anti-American, anti-military agenda. Some stations delayed or skipped the episode entirely, and overseas bans made The Interview one of the most elusive chapters in the show's legendary run. Whether you see it as brave or bleak, The Interview made one thing clear. Even sitcoms could punch you in the gut and leave a bruise that lingered long after the credits rolled. The Jeffersons, Once a Friend, 1977. Leave it to Norman Lear to use primetime for a bombshell nobody saw coming. In Once a Friend, the Jeffersons dared to tackle an issue that was still strictly taboo in 1977: gender identity. The plot kicks off with George Jefferson running into an old Navy pal, Eddie. Except there's a twist: Eddie is now Edie, having transitioned into a woman. From the moment Edie walks through the door, the episode throws gasoline on the fire of 1970s social anxieties. George reacts with a mixture of shock, disbelief, and comic bluster. The jokes are sharp, but the script never lets you forget the tension humming underneath. For viewers who thought TV was a safe, predictable place, Once a Friend ripped the comfort blanket away. Network brass knew they were playing with dynamite. Even though the script tries to find humor and humanity in Edie's story, the episode's existence was enough to send several CBS affiliates scrambling for the emergency break. Some stations flat out refused to air it, worried about community backlash and threats from advertisers. The ones that did often fielded angry calls and boycotts, while quietly earning praise from LGBTQ+ advocates who saw, maybe for the first time, someone like themselves reflected on screen. But here's the real kicker. For all its rough edges, Once a Friend was a step forward, awkward and imperfect as it was. It didn't always get everything right, 1970s TV rarely did, but it cracked the door open for honest discussions about gender, identity, and acceptance. The episode remains a lightning rod, still debated and, in some markets, still rarely shown. It's proof that sitcoms, when they're brave, can start conversations the world isn't quite ready for, and sometimes that's exactly what makes them matter. Three's Company, The Reverend Steps Out, 1978. If there was one sitcom that perfected the art of miscommunication, it was Three's Company. But even by its own standards, The Reverend Steps Out sparked a firestorm. This wasn't just about mistaken identities or farcical bedroom shenanigans. This episode collided head-on with social taboos and left some viewers clutching their pearls for dear life. Here's the deal. The plot centers around Jack Tripper, the original man with a secret, and a visiting reverend. A classic misunderstanding kicks off when the reverend's daughter gets involved, and rumors swirl about her relationship with Jack. In a sitcom known for its sexual innuendos, this episode doubles down, suggesting not only an affair but raising suspicions about Jack's pretend homosexuality, which was the running gag that allowed him to live with Janet and Chrissy in the first place. The fallout was instant. Some local stations took one look at the script and refused to air it. The humor was too suggestive, the subject matter too risque for markets still clinging to the vestiges of 1950s conservatism. The idea of a reverend's daughter being involved in a sexual farce? Unthinkable. Jack's sexuality, the butt of endless jokes, was suddenly seen as a political flashpoint rather than just slapstick. Meanwhile, viewers split into camps. Some thought it was hilarious and a sly commentary on social hypocrisy. Others saw it as crass, offensive, and a step too far for prime time. The controversy gave Three's Company its edge, but also forced producers to walk a tightrope. How far could they push before the censors pushed back? In the end, The Reverend Steps Out became a rarely seen episode, more famous for the chaos it caused than the laughs it delivered. It was classic Three's Company, brazen, bawdy, and not afraid to get a little messy, no matter how many feathers it ruffled along the way. WKRP in Cincinnati. Les on a Ledge, 1978. You think sitcoms are all about laughs until you stumble on an episode like Les on a Ledge. WKRP in Cincinnati was known for its offbeat radio station antics and razor-sharp satire, but this 1978 episode took a turn that left both viewers and network execs sweating. The story kicks off with newsman Les Nessman believing he's about to be fired. His anxiety spirals until he climbs out onto the window ledge of the radio station, intent on ending his life. Suddenly, the sitcom audience is faced with a very real, very raw depiction of suicide. Back then, mental health was TV's third rail, untouchable and awkwardly avoided, but WKRP tackled it head-on, showing the rest of the staff scrambling to coax Les back to safety. Johnny Fever's usual dry humor is replaced by desperate empathy, and even Mr. Carlson drops his bluster to try and save a colleague's life. There are laughs, but they're nervous, undercut by the tension of not knowing if Les will make it back inside. When the episode first aired, a wave of complaints hit CBS like a ton of bricks. Viewers accused the show of being irresponsible, glorifying suicide, or just plain too heavy for a Thursday night comedy block. Affiliates in some cities pulled the episode, worried it would trigger copycats or upset local sponsors. Others insisted on edits, trimming lines, or scenes that felt too real. The episode vanished from syndication for years, occasionally surfacing only with heavy disclaimers about mental health resources. But for all the hand-wringing, Les on a Ledge did something few sitcoms dared. It put the stigma of mental illness right in the spotlight. Instead of treating suicide as a punchline or hiding it behind melodrama, WKRP made it human, awkward, and deeply relatable. To this day, it's a reminder that sitcoms aren't just about escapism. Sometimes they're about saying the unsayable and refusing to look away when things get uncomfortable. Welcome back, Cotter. Sweatthog Christmas Special, 1976. A Christmas episode banned only in the 1970s. Welcome Back, Cotter was a show about lovable misfits, but the Sweatthog Christmas Special pulled no punches about the harsh realities many families faced during the holidays. Instead of jingle bells and cheer, viewers got poverty, disappointment, and a sobering look at what it means to have nothing when the rest of the world is celebrating. The story focuses on the Sweathogs struggling with everything from absent parents to empty cupboards. For all the trademark wisecracks and energy, there's an undercurrent of desperation. The episode dares to show how the holidays can amplify pain for kids growing up in tough neighborhoods. One character contemplates shoplifting so his siblings can have presents. Another dreads going home to a drunken, abusive father. Network executives were not amused. For affiliates in conservative markets, this wasn't holiday spirit. It was a downer, plain and simple. Several local stations yanked the episode, citing concerns about its bleak tone, depiction of family dysfunction, and what some called an attack on the American Christmas. Viewers were split. Some praised the show for keeping it real, others thought it ruined their holiday mood. Years later, the Sweatthog Christmas special is rarely seen on TV. It's a reminder that sometimes sitcoms do more than entertain. They tell uncomfortable truths and force us to look at the world outside the glow of Christmas lights. Not everyone wants reality in their holiday specials, but Cotter wasn't afraid to risk the coal in its stocking. Barney Miller. Quo vadis, 1977. Barney Miller was the thinking person's sitcom, a smart, low-key police comedy that wasn't afraid to get serious. But in 1977, the episode Quo Vadis became the show's own political landmine. The reason? A storyline involving Officer Zitelli, who comes out as gay to his boss, Captain Miller. What sounds tame by today's standards was an earthquake for late 70s network television. This was an era when LGBTQ+ characters were mostly punchlines or hidden subtext, not real people with real fears. The show didn't play it for laughs. Instead, it gave Zitelli a moment of honesty and vulnerability, portraying his coming out as an act of courage, not comedy. The fallout was swift. Some affiliates refused to air the episode, fearing backlash from conservative viewers and local sponsors. Others ran it with a disclaimer, warning that the subject matter was controversial. Letters poured in, some praising the show for tackling bigotry, others accusing it of pushing an agenda. Even among fans, the reaction was split. For every viewer moved by Zitelli's story, there was another who thought the episode went too far. Barney Miller's writers stood firm, arguing that sitcoms had a duty to reflect the real world, warts and all. Quo Vadis has since become a landmark for LGBTQ+ representation, but back then, it was just as likely to get you a stern call from the station manager as a round of applause. It's a testament to the risks creators were willing to take, even if it meant their work would be hidden away, whispered about, or, in some cases, banned outright. So, which banned episode made you rethink what sitcoms could get away with, or what they should have dared to show? The 1970s weren't just groovy, they were raw, unpredictable, and willing to poke every sacred cow in sight. If you love this deep dive into TV's most dangerous moments, drop your thoughts in the comments, hit subscribe, and share with a fellow nostalgia junkie. And remember, sometimes the stories you're not supposed to see are the ones you'll never forget.